afternoon all, and thank you again for the invitation to talk about innovation and the interaction with universities. One thing I would start first of all by saying today's presentations from the very beginning was all about innovation, and you can clearly see the role of universities in these ecosystems. And if you historically look at major innovation ecosystems around the world, it is always anchored around one key university, one or two key universities. You look at the Silicon Valley, Stanford, Berkeley, those universities have been anchoring innovations and the ecosystem evolves around them. There are similars around Cambridge, and similar things can also happen in India and is already happening. But I will take a little different route in a different industry sector to talk about innovation and the role of universities and our experience with that in the life sciences sector. You heard from Naresh from Samsung around artificial intelligence, the electronics industry. In the life sciences sector, the innovation ecosystems work in a very different time scale. Just like the pharmaceutical industry, some things take long, and therefore the approaches to that innovation system has to be very different. I work for DuPont Knowledge Center, which is based out of Hyderabad. This is one of our flagship R&D center that was set up in Asia Pacific to serve the entire ASEAN market and India, purely based on mainly biotechnology. In this presentation, I'm going to mainly cover agriculture, although DuPont has been involved in many flagship material inventions, including nylon, Kevlar, and the whole polymer world. To that, I will talk maybe in some other occasion. Today, we're going to talk about mainly our approaches and interactions with the university in the agriculture sector. A little bit about the R&D center that we set up, and this has a meaning on how we structured it. We wanted one integrated system in a city like Hyderabad, which is also surrounded by many world-class universities. This was the very first time when DuPont was thinking about where do we place our R&D center in India. As you can imagine, there are so many choices. And one of the factors that is always taken into account is not just the talent pool from universities, but the reputation of the universities or national institutes around which you build your R&D center. A little bit about this R&D center is it is in Samirpet, which is an hour and a half. So this is the IT hub in Gachibowli, or in the high-tech center. We have the life sciences hub, which I always welcome. Most of you should travel there to see. It's a very vibrant city. When we came into that place, we were called the anchor company. There was no outer ring road, there was nothing. But we had one single-minded vision, and that is the people and the leadership of the company who thought you can build innovation systems from scratch. And I would therefore say what you heard from Dr. Reddy's lab, Mr. Satish talk about the triangle, the government, the university, and the private sector. But what ties all these things together is vision of a single individual. Sometimes you don't need thousands of people to start a system. It is just the single-mindedness and the willingness to stick to it. After we build, this is the Life Sciences Genome Valley Park. You can see how much of innovations and how many companies have started in the last 10 years. Some of the world-class facilities in vaccines, manufacturing is right from that city, that place in there where we are located. So automatically, the innovation ecosystem started. We started collaborating with each other, understanding what are the different business models, and that ultimately helps collaborations with the universities, small companies. We have incubators there, and many success stories are slowly evolving from there. In terms of university interaction, DuPont always believed in funding or encouraging the young faculties or the young students who are in reputed institutes but still struggling with the chair professors. Because you always have that mentality in a university system. You have your chair professors, you have the entire legacy in that, but there is always a non-tenured professor who is struggling to put his idea through. So globally, we launched this program many, many years ago with all the countries globally. And I can tell you in India, we had some of the brightest non-tenured professors. And this is, again, from IIT Delhi in an area of nutrition and metabolic engineering. Subsequently, we've funded some, again, in the area of agriculture, Ravi Murthachalam, a new approaches, very risky approach to do something that would otherwise not be funded. And that's the approach we have taken, not just in India, it's a globally competitive approach, and that's how we started interacting with universities and get them into our system. Very recently with the agriculture, again, this is a website that all the universities, any private citizen company, anybody can apply for these funds within DuPont Open Innovation System in the area of agriculture. There are specific areas defined where we would like to collaborate, hear about ideas. It's a very interactive online system that I just took one snapshot that talks about disease control in the agriculture, any new ideas. And you can see the funding can raise from $5,000 to $50,000. And I think it closed in October, but there are many similar fields that are out there where the interaction with university, small company globally is being driven. And this is, again, one area very newly launched, I would say a couple of months back, and I would look forward to see how the university system interacts in this online way of vetting out ideas. The other thing, that, again, coming back to agriculture, and it is not just life sciences centric, I think the similar story that you heard from Naresh, that we always want in corporations young minds who are good in their subject matter, because there is always this feeling that the depth of the knowledge that one needs to have to come in to start contributing in the corporations, you need state-of-the-art skilling. I used to remember when I was in college or university, I used to think the industry guys know nothing, they just have the money. Then I joined the industry, and then I realized how little do I know. And over the 25 years, I just realized that industrial research, academic research, is just the communication terminology gap that needs to be fixed, because the innovation passion is always there on both sides, and systems have to encourage. So in the area of plant sciences, we have globally launched plant symposium series in many different countries. I think one was held recently in Paris, and in India also, this series in 2 universities, we have already done that. And this are the examples in the Punjab Agriculture University and in the PJTSU in Hyderabad, and one in IARI recently. And the way these things are structured, it is managed actually by the graduate students of the university. What do they want to talk about? What do they want to know? So they become a part of the organization committee, and they start doing this thing where world-class leaders come in, interact with them, and this has gone very well. And the intent is, again, to build capacity, human resource capacity in a particular area, and often many areas are neglected in these innovation systems. And that's what I call, although innovations in certain sectors are going well, some of them don't result in fruition because of the incongruency between different sectors. For example, you can have a lot of digitization in the banking system or in the IT sector, but digitization in agriculture is lagging behind. Digitization in road systems are lagging behind. So the ultimate result is that you're moving the bottleneck from one sector to another, and the consumer is not seeing the benefit of that innovation. So this is the reason we went after breeding technologies. This was mainly focused on breeding. How do you get farmers and students who are going to be managing a significant portion of India's GDP, which is about 25%, is a significant portion, has to be with new technology and new training. So this symposium was mainly aimed for that. And coming back to the skills, the subject matter expertise in the universities does exist, but they definitely lack the interaction, the fine-tuning of that knowledge that goes a little bit on the boundaries beyond the subject matter. Not that a student has to know everything, but what we clearly see, the business acumen or the legal knowledge, the idea how to work collaboratively within people, within cross-disciplinary. That little finishing school, I would say, in the last year maybe, or maybe half a year, can make a lot of service to the student who is just getting into the workforce. And so this is an example, again, from plant breeding, but this applies in other areas of materials or industrial biotechnology. So again, coming back to the, from our perspective, the life sciences sector, where product cycles are very long, it is not developing something that can be launched in 2 years. We're talking about creating an ecosystem where results will be seen in 6, 7, and sometimes 10, 15 years. For that, you need to have the guts to go in, work collaboratively, and from a corporate perspective, we have this similar pressure about saying, what did we miss? Is there an innovation happening in my neighborhood that can disrupt my industry? So some areas that we have taken is long-term, but very high risk and high reward. So those are the approaches where even today we are giving intellectual property licensing to the universities in genome editing for improving crop resistance, crop yield, so that the new generation of agriculture scientists are fully trained in that area. And high risk, high reward is one approach. The other thing I would always say that although innovation, I have heard both sides of the story, that invention is invention, innovation is very different, connecting the dots, making to the market. But you will always see an innovation lasts only when there is a solid idea. And it always has to be anchored on an idea that is so strong and so promising that big corporations are saying, this can disrupt me. And therefore, I would say that we shouldn't lose in India our world-class reputation in institutes on the subject matter. We still have to be good at it. You have to maintain that. And therefore, I have heard, let the scientists do the scientist's job. There's nothing wrong in it. We have other players, platforms in between who can connect it. So world-class reputation is very critical. A common vision to develop a new competency, that's the other piece. The product cycles are so long in our industry, a single company or a single university cannot do this by themselves. A certain like artificial intelligence, it cannot be overnight done by only a small group of companies. So the university's vision and the corporation's vision has to match, that we want to develop, let's say in Hyderabad or in Telangana, a particular competency, a competency that can be world-class, can compete with Singapore, Silicon Valley, or anywhere. And that would take a very concerted effort with that. And that is something that we are looking at, what type of competencies that we would build. And we have done that in our own R&D centers. We looked around all the institutes. There are many strong biotech institutes in Hyderabad. So we decided biotechnology is one area in the DuPont Knowledge Center that we would build. And we would build it to serve the whole world, not just Hyderabad or Telangana. So we don't choose to do everything in one R&D center because there is a market. We do selected competencies that are world-class. So the R&D center in Hyderabad will support global programs in certain competencies. And those competencies will not exist in any other R&D lab in our company. And that is how we have been successful. It was a long 10-year journey. I think we're going through that pretty well. The other thing, with being very fair to the incubators, let's be very honest. In this industry where there are 15 years, some products will take 7 years, 8 years. If you don't protect his interest or his idea, and we always say, make the prototype, validate it, somebody will buy you out, somebody will do, it doesn't happen that way. So I think the intellectual property framework in our industry is very critical to protect the small companies or the university student who is just starting a new company. Critical frameworks and the patent framework will give him enough buffer and peace of mind and attract investments to make his idea eventually come fruitful. If not in the same direction he had thought, it can go in a different direction. And significant progress has been made in this in India in the last few years. And therefore, we are hopeful that this will try to catalyze more entrepreneurship in the non-traditional sectors where the product cycles have a long time. And I think the other thing that you always have to think, science starts at your home, which is something by, your parents teach you. So a lot of work we have done in the CSR area in the local schools in Samirpet, giving science laboratories to schools where there have been science being taught without a laboratory. So these are some of the areas where we're trying to bring science innovation into our local ecosystem. So thank you again.